In your last lesson, you learned how to add two integers. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to add more than two integers. And just like the last one, I'm going to show you some tricks on how to make your life a little easier when you're adding a whole bunch of numbers in one problem. Let's start with the long way to do this. So the long way to add these numbers, -10 plus 26 plus a -18 plus a -3, and remember these parentheses are here just to separate our plus sign from our negative. To do this the long way, we would start with the first two numbers and use our rules for adding just two integers and ignore the rest of the problem for now. So using our rules to add two integers, because our signs are different, a -10 with a positive 26, whenever we're adding and the signs are different, we're actually subtracting our numbers, 26 minus 10, to give us 16, and we're keeping the sign of the bigger number, which is 26. If we're thinking the money trick, -10, that's money I owe someone. Positive 26, that's money I have in my pocket. I'm going to pay back my friend their $10, and that's going to leave me with 16. I could think number line. If I'm starting at 0, first I'm going to move to the left 10, landing at -10. And then from there, I'm going to move to the right 26, and that's going to land me at a positive 16. If I'm thinking my number cubes, -10 would be red cubes, 10 of them. Positive 26 would be 26 green cubes. I have two different color cubes. So the 10 red that I have are going to cancel out with 10 of the green that I have, and that's going to leave me with green cubes left, 16 of them. So those are the tricks that we learned in the last video. Now that I've added the first two numbers, I'm going to bring down the rest of my problem so everything stays lined up. Now I'm going to add the next two numbers in my problem, leaving that plus a -3 for the last step. So using my rules for this 16 plus a -18, again, my signs are different. One's a positive number, one's a negative number, which means I'm subtracting 18 minus 16 to give me 2. And because I have more negatives, because my negative number is the bigger number, it's going to stay negative. Again, number line, I'm moving to the right 16, but then I have to move back to the left 18, landing me at -2. Thinking money, $16 in my pocket, I owe my friend 18, I'm going to give him all 16 that I have, but I'm still going to owe them $2. If I'm thinking cubes, I have 16 green, I have 18 red. That means I have 2 more red cubes left over when the 0 pairs cancel out. All I have left to do now is bring down what I have left in the problem that I haven't used. And then my last step here is to add my -2 and my -3. This time my signs are the same. And in our rules, when they are both positive numbers or they're both negative numbers, we're going to add 2 plus 3. And because I started with 2 negatives, I'm ending with 2 negatives. And my final answer is a -5. And again, we can go back to the number line. I can move to the left 2, and then I'm moving to the left 3 more, and it's going to land me at -5. If I'm thinking money, I still owe my friend $2. I borrow $3 more from my friend. Now I owe them a total of $5. And again, those cubes, I have 2 red cubes. I have 3 more red cubes. Now I have a grand total of 5 red cubes. So doing this the long way with 4 numbers that I'm adding together, it takes me 3 steps. Well, what if I was adding 14 numbers in the same problem? Can you imagine how many steps that's going to take? That's a lot of steps. So I'm going to show you a shortcut. So whether I'm adding 4 numbers together or I'm adding 44 numbers together, it's only going to take you 3 steps to solve the problem. So let's take a look at the same problem again. And I'm going to show you this cool little trick you can use. So whenever I'm adding more than 2 numbers at a time, my trick is to separate my numbers. Make a list of all your positive numbers and a list of all your negative numbers. So if I start at -10, I'm just going to work from left to right so I don't miss any numbers. -10, that's going to go in my negative pile. I'm done with that number. 26, that one's positive, it's going to go here. 18 is negative, it's going to go under my negative pile again. And then 3 is also negative, that's going to also go in my negative pile. So here's my positive numbers. Well, I only have one of them, so I'm just going to bring that number down. Here's my negative numbers. Well, all 3 of these are negatives. So if I'm thinking about that number line, if I'm starting at 0, I'm going to move to the left 10, and then from there I'm going to move to the left 18 more, and from there I'm going to move to the left 3 more. If I'm thinking money, I owe $10 to one person, I owe $18 to a second person, I owe $3 to a third person. If I'm thinking cubes, I have 10 red cubes, I have 18 more red cubes, I have 3 more red cubes. So because these are all the same sign, I'm going to add these 3 numbers together, but I'm going to keep my answer negative. So I'm going to add 10 plus 18, that's 28. And then 28 plus 3, so 28, 29, 30, that's 31. So my first step, again, is separate all my positive numbers and my negative numbers. My second step is add all my positives. Even though there's only one here, if I had more positive numbers, they're all green cubes. Add them together, they stay green. So take your positives and add them, keep it positive. Take your negatives and add them and keep it negative. So now all I have left is one positive number with one negative number. And going back to our rules for adding, because these signs are different, I'm actually going to subtract 31 minus 26 to give me 5. And because I have more negatives than I do positives, my answer is going to be a negative 5. So 3 steps. And even though this problem had 3 steps, we'll go back to look at it, doing it the long way. Took me 3 steps to get negative 5 here. Took me 3 steps to also get negative 5 this way. Let's take a look at a problem that has more than 4 numbers. So if we take a look at this problem, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers. If I wanted to do this the long way, it's going to take me 7 steps to get to a final answer. Add these 2, get a number, then add it to this, get a number, until we're all the way at the end. Using our trick of separating our positives and our negatives, this is only going to take 3 steps. Step 1, separate our positives and our negatives. So let's make a list of positive numbers and negative numbers. Starting at the beginning, 38 is negative. I'm going to put it in this pile. 20 is also negative. I'm going to put it in my negative pile and cross it off as I go. 44, also a negative number. Cross it off as we go. 76, there's our first positive number. 62 is going to go under our negative pile. 89, that one's positive. 47 is positive. And then 21 is negative. So now that I have my list of positive and negative numbers, step 2, all of my positive numbers get added and the answer stays positive. So let's add these up here. So I have 9 and 7 is 16, and then 16 is 6 is 22, carry the 2, and then I have 8 and 7 is 15, plus 4 more is 19, 20, 21. So when I add my positives numbers together, I get positive 2, 12. Now I'm going to take my negatives, and because they're all negatives, I'm still going to add them, but this time my answer is going to stay negative. So let's add up all of these negative numbers here. So I'm going to go with 8 and 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15. Carry the 1. And then we have 1 and 3 is 4, 5, 6. And then 6 and 10 is 16, 17, 18. So I get a negative 185. So again, step 1 was separate my positives and my negatives. Step 2, add your positives to get a positive total. Add your negatives to get a negative total. My final step is now add my positive and my negative together. And remember our rule, if we're adding 2 numbers with different signs, we're actually subtracting these numbers. I'm going to figure out the sign of my answer first. If I was thinking cubes, I have 212 green ones. I only have 185 red ones. That means my final answer is going to be positive. Now all I have to do is ignore the signs of these numbers since I know the answer is positive. And because I know they're different signs, I'm going to subtract these numbers to figure out my final answer. So that means to do 2 minus 5, I have to borrow, making it 12 minus 5. And then to do 0 minus 8, I have to borrow again, making that 10 minus 8 to get 2. And then 1 minus 1 is 0. So my final answer in this problem is a positive 27. And even though I started with 8 numbers, it only took me 3 steps to get my final answer of 27.